Hi, this is William Ramsey. The following interview was taken with Juanita Broaddrick, a Bill Clinton sexual assault victim, on the Ed Opperman Report on June 11th, 2016.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Hi, welcome to the Ed Opperman Report. My name is William Ramsey. I'm sitting in for Ed. Ed is out on the campaign trail for Bernie Sanders, and he asked me to sit in, so I gladly accepted. Tonight on the Ed Opperman Report, we have two special guests. In the first hour, we have Juanita Broaddrick, and in the second hour, it's Johnny Cerrucci. For the first hour, Juanita Broaddrick is going to talk about her experience with the Clinton family in Arkansas. She is an Arkansas resident, and I'd like to bring her online now. Juanita, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Juanita. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Great. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Juanita. Some people aren't familiar with your name or your story, so if you could just give a little detailed account about your background in Arkansas.
Sure. I was a nursing home owner. I'm a registered nurse, and I built and owned my own nursing home and ran it for approximately 33 years. During this time is when I met Bill Clinton, when I first operated my home.
Gotcha. And you grew up in Arkansas, is that correct?
Yes, Born and raised in Van Buren, Arkansas.
Van Buren, great. Okay. So, and you're still in Arkansas now, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
Are you still living in Arkansas?
Yes, still in Van Buren.
Okay, great. Thank you. And let's go back to the time that you met Bill Clinton. It was back in 1978, is that correct?
Yes, it was. Okay. I was working in his gubernatorial campaign. I was one of the volunteers. And he was making a round in this area of nursing homes for his campaign. And he came to my nursing home, and he saw me wearing the Clinton button, and was very nice and came over to me, and I was trying to explain to him about the nursing home process, on how patients are qualified under Medicaid, and just a lot of things that I wanted to talk to him about. And while he was there, he said, well, when you're in Little Rock again, I'm very interested in what you have to say about the nursing homes. And he said, I hope we can get together and talk. Okay. So approximately 3 weeks later is when my nurse and I went to Little Rock for a nursing home meeting.
I see. And then you ran into him somewhere in Little Rock. Is that correct?
Well, yes. He told me when I got to Little Rock to please call his headquarters. He had some special pins and buttons and things for the campaign. And he also wanted to sit down and talk to me about my ideas about how the reimbursement method was really poor at that time. Okay. And he just wanted to hear my ideas on a proper reimbursement method for nursing homes. So I called his campaign headquarters when we got there. And the lady that answered the phone, she recognized my name. It was Hickey at that time, Juanita Hickey. And she said, Mr. Clinton said, when you call, for you to please call him at his apartment, which I did. And I told him we were there, but we had a meeting to go to. And he said, well, could we just meet in the Camelot coffee shop? That's where my nurse and I were staying, my employee. And he said, could we just meet down there and we can talk down there? And, of course, I told him, yes, I'd be happy to. Well, I was really glad to get to talk to him about our problems. So my nurse decided she would go on, and after I met with him in the coffee shop, I would come on to the meeting.
Gotcha. And there's a picture of you two together. Is that correct? You and Bill Clinton?
Yes.
And that was taken at the campaign headquarters. Is that correct?
No, that was at my nursing home.
Okay, gotcha. I apologize.
Yeah, had two of our residents in the photo.
Okay. Yeah, that's the photo I saw. Okay, thanks. Sorry to interrupt. And please continue. And then what happened at the Camelot Hotel?
Well, I waited in the room for him to call so I could go down. And a short time went by, and I had a phone call to my room, and it was Mr. Clinton, and he said, it's so crowded down here, and there's so many reporters. He said, can we just have coffee in your room? And it made me a little bit apprehensive, but I thought, well, this is going to be okay. This won't be anything. So I ordered coffee to the room, and shortly thereafter he arrived. And he came in, and I was pouring coffee for us, and we were standing over by the window, which looked down at the river, the Arkansas River. And he was explaining to me how there was an old building down there that was sort of in rubble. And he said that was an old jailhouse hundreds of years ago, and he was very interested in restoring it and all of this. And then he came over pointing it out, and he put his arm around my shoulder, and he pulled me to him, which I immediately pushed back on him. And things did not go well from there.
Gotcha. Okay, well, yeah. Basically, you endured something horrible that unfortunately is common with women who are in close to Bill Clinton. And basically, my understanding is from your story is that he engaged in non-consensual sexual relationship. Is that correct?
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, there was nothing. And, for the longest time, I blame myself for allowing him to come to the room. I felt so naive. I felt stupid, and I felt used. And but it was the most horrible word happened. It was rape.
Right. Yeah, I'm terribly sorry about that. And there was somebody with you who confirmed that he not only did that, but also caused some bodily injury. Is that correct? It was Miss Norma Rogers. Is that right? She saw that you had been harmed?
Yes, when I didn't come back to the meeting, she came to the room at the first break and found me in a pretty horrible situation. My top lip was swollen probably 3 times the size it should be, and was bleeding from where he had bitten me. And I was devastated. And she immediately went and got ice, and we tried to doctor my lip the best that we could. And she packed up all of our stuff, and we left immediately for home. And
didn't you, recalling the event, you said that Bill Clinton said to you, you better get some ice on that after.
Oh, yeah, just very, very coldly. I was sitting there and crying. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, and I was just in a state of shock. And he calmly gathers himself and walks to the door, puts on his sunglasses, and just turns around very nonchalantly and says, you better get some ice on that. And then walks out the door.
Gotcha. And I think I was reading about some other victims of Bill Clinton, and they had experienced an injury to the lip as well. I think there was one other woman who claimed that same kind of assault occurred. So it definitely corroborates what you're saying. Now, what happened after that horrible event? You still kind of ran into the Clintons again. Is that correct?
Yeah, approximately 2 to 3 weeks later. It was a fundraiser, and I didn't think about it until the last minute. So I got 2 of my friends to accompany me up there early because I had some checks and some lists of people who were supposed to donate. And I really didn't know who I was supposed to give these to. So I went up. I got there approximately 20 minutes before it was going to start to hand over these items and then leave. I was just going to leave. I did not want to be there, when the Clintons got there. But I didn't make it out in time. They got back from the airport early. And just before they got there, or just as they got there, the man who had driven them from the airport, his name was Charles Watts. He was the local pharmacist, and he was the designated driver from the airport to Dr. Criswell's home where the event was being held. And he came over to me, and Chuck was his name. He wasn't aware of what had happened to me, and he was very happily saying, well, the whole topic of the conversation all the way from the airport was about you, and them asking me questions about you and talking about you. And then right when he got that out of his mouth, I see the Clintons coming through the kitchen.
See.
And somebody in the kitchen is pointing to me for Hillary to know where I am, I guess. And so she starts directly for me, and Bill Clinton goes the opposite direction. And she comes straight to me and starts to profusely thank me for working in his campaign and saying, we just appreciate everything you do for Bill's campaign. And I was just going to turn and leave, and walk away. And that's when she grabbed onto my arm and my hand, and she pulled me close to her, and she said, do you understand everything you do? And as she said that, this horrible frown comes on her face, very stern, very angry look.
Did you interpret what she was saying as kind of a threat?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, definitely. I didn't have any doubt that she was threatening me, like, I know what happened, and you just better stay quiet.
Interesting.
Scared me.
Did you feel like she had done that? And so you were scared and you felt threatened. And then I read in a recent interview you had that Bill Clinton was still trying to get in touch with you after the event. Is that correct?
Yes, he called my nursing home about 3 or 4 times over a period of time after the assault. And the first 2 or 3 times, my assistant would come to me and she said, it's Bill Clinton on the phone. And I said, well, would you please tell him I'm busy? And that was they knew that the top 3 people knew that I did not want to talk to him. And so they would tell him that I was busy. But I had the misfortune of the 3rd or 4th or 5th time, whatever it was, of answering the phone myself, and it was him. And he said something to the effect, hello, this is Bill Clinton or Bill or whatever, and said, when are you coming back to Little Rock? When are you coming back to Little Rock? Like that was a usual occurrence or something. And I just hung up.
Did you feel in your kind of that experience with the Clintons that this is a kind of a phenomenon that or a series of actions that they had done before? Or did you feel like you were, this was the first time they had done something like that?
I didn't know what to think.
Gotcha.
I just didn't know what to think. I was caught up in my own denial of what had happened, and also I blamed myself for letting him come to the room. I thought this is just something I have to accept. I was stupid for letting him come to my room, and this is just something that I just have to go on with my life.
Gotcha. Yeah, reading about that, it kind of reminded me of the Cosby case with all these women who had undergone these things and felt the same kind of emotions that you felt, you feel stupid. You feel like I'm the one that let him come to my room. And the mentality back then was so different than it is now. And can you talk about that a little bit? Like what was the feeling of these kind of assaults kind of in that culture? It's almost 5 years ago.
The man was believed so much more than the woman was. It's like the woman egged it on, or it's the woman's fault. And if it happens to you, then you just better be quiet. Right. I went through a real hard time after that. I couldn't even allow men to come to my office. I had a procedure that if a salesman needed to talk to me about something, they were to call me to the nurse's desk, to the main counter, and I would come out there and see them. But to be alone with somebody that I didn't know it was frightful.
Yeah, and you said that, I think I read somewhere that you said it affected your relationships too.
Yes, very much.
Later on, is that correct?
Yes, with my second husband it did. It just, even though he knew, it just seems like it was always there between us. And it was a horrible thing for him to accept, and it gradually made the marriage fall apart.
Gotcha. And you other than Mrs. Rogers, you didn't tell anybody, is that correct? Or did you keep it to yourself? Or
I told 4 other people.
4 other people. Okay, so they knew. But you weren't public about it until much later. Is that correct?
Right. Oh yeah. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I just felt too much shame.
Understand.
I just felt the shame was overbearing.
But it was something to do with, like, there were other lawyers, like, you've kind of unfortunately had to carry this burden for decades because there's people who've tried to track you down and tried to have you tell the story during when Bill Clinton was running for president. Is that correct?
Right.
Can you talk?
In fact,
talk
I was
about that?
in San Francisco one time, and somebody had come to my door and had some kind of a voice recorder. And I know when I went to San Francisco the next month, reporters out there were following me around trying to get my voice to match it to what somebody had recorded earlier about
secretly
me.
recorded, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And that was disturbing. So I just pretty well stayed away from anything. When I had people call, I would just say I didn't have any comment on the situation.
And did you run into other people who had been abused by Clinton while you were in Arkansas for those years?
No.
No,
I didn't have any contact with any of the other women until Kathleen Willey called me. Oh gosh, probably just before I was going to do the Dateline interview with Lisa Myers in NBC.
That was like late 1990.
Yeah, it was 98, somewhere in that area, because I know Lisa Myers and I had a conversation off and on for a year before I decided that I would go public.
Gotcha. And what did Mrs. Willey call you? What would she want to talk about?
She was just hoping, that I would come forward and that I would tell my story, and and then that way it helped her in her situation also. But I just couldn't. I just couldn't at that time. But I did develop a friendship with her, and we are still friends to this day.
Well, that's good. And what made you kind of change your mind and want to tell the story publicly?
Well, I think it was just Lisa's insistence, and I think it was also because he was being impeached. I thought that NBC would do the right thing and air this during the, cause see, it was taped, 6 weeks before it actually aired. And the hope was that this would be, aired during the impeachment.
Right.
And I was so in hopes that would happen, because people were saying if you'll only come forward, this will help him to be, removed from office. And I just felt that there was just so many people relying on me to go ahead and come forward, so that's why I did. Gotcha. But then, the story with NBC, that they held the story.
Yeah, so the story actually was published about a month after he was impeached in early 1999. Is that right? Right.
It was, let's see, we recorded about 6 weeks before. We filmed on January the 20th, and it was supposed to air on either the 22nd or the 29th, but it didn't air until February 19th.
Gotcha. And the impeachment was because of the Paula Jones lawsuit that the Kenneth Starr investigation brought up. Did Kenneth Starr ever try to get in touch with you or his investigative team? Okay.
Yeah. See, I had denied this through the Paula Jones. I was Jane Doe number 5 in the Paula Jones suit, and I had denied it to them because I didn't want to get into it. I was still too ashamed of what had happened and that I'd held it for so long. But then when I was told that Kenneth Starr's people were coming to do a deposition or interview me or whatever, my son, who's an attorney, came to me and said, "Mom, you can't lie anymore because this is a federal case now. You've got to go ahead and tell the truth." So I did. Then I finally told the truth to the Starr people.
And did they come to Arkansas to interview you?
Yes.
I see.
In my attorney's office.
Gotcha. So it was like a proper statement was made, or is that correct?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And
they also told me at that time they would not press any charges for the previous denial of what had happened.
See. And, during this time, have you felt any kind of intimidation or threats from the Clinton machine?
No.
Nothing. So they just
No, I truly haven't. I didn't have the things like Kathleen Woolley did, where she was actually intimidated in person. I've had people follow me, which I thought were probably Clinton's people, and I was followed for a long time, and that sort of was frightening. But no one actually came to me in person and threatened me.
Gotcha, I see. I mean, because some other people seem to have had it. And then you eventually, after you kind of came public back in 1999, you also were interested in obtaining any records that the Clintons might have on you. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is done through Judicial Watch.
Okay.
I was audited by the IRS, which was very sudden, and I just was very shocked. But, of course, it was while all this was going on. So at that time, we heard that there were files on all of the women that Clinton had, or Hillary had, somebody had, and Judicial Watch on my behalf tried to find out what was in this file. And I think they finally dropped the suit or whatever, but we never did find anything. We never did receive the file on me.
The files were never tracked out. There was a story back then, I remember, that somebody within the Clinton camp had files on everybody and was trying to make sure everybody kept quiet. Isn't that right?
Right. I mean, we were just interested in what was in this file, what they were going to use on me next after the IRS audit, which turned out in my favor.
What year was the IRS audit?
Oh, gosh, I want to say early 2000. Maybe late 99.
Gotcha. So it was still
I can't
under
remember.
the Clintons were still in power until what?
Yes.
So you think it was politically motivated, correct?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I have no doubt.
Yeah, and there were other people, too, who during that
time... And they went about it in a way that I was a subchapter S corporation. So even though they were auditing my nursing home, that meant they could follow through and audit me personally in a subchapter S.
And how long did that process take to finally?
Oh, my gosh. They went through everything at my nursing home. We had files and records pulled out for weeks.
So a team basically showed up to go through everything,
yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, to go through everything at my nursing home. But they found nothing. I had to pay nothing. It was just closed out.
It got closed out. How long was the process? A couple of years, or was it done in a year?
No, it was probably closer, not a couple of years, probably all closed out in a year. But you were just on standby, and when they needed something else they wanted to look at.
I see. And, you've kind of been talking about this recently about the Clintons and everything like that. What's your kind of feel about Hillary Clinton running for the presidency of the United States?
Oh, I think it's a disgrace. I think it's an absolute disgrace. I got involved in Twitter back in January after Hillary made her tweet about all victims of sexual abuse should come forward and be believed. And I thought, my God, I cannot believe that's coming out of that woman's mouth. How dare she? How dare she say something like that after what she had done to all the women he had abused? And that's when I got very involved on Twitter.
Gotcha. And have you made other contacts with, people who are, concerned about her statements and her viability as a protector of women?
Oh, yes. I get a lot of comments, and I've been doing a lot of radio interviews, and people get me through Twitter.
Gotcha. So you can be contacted through Twitter. You're active on Twitter.
Yeah, they usually message me through Twitter.
Gotcha. And, going back to Arkansas at that time, did you ever see any of the kind of things that people talk about in Arkansas, the drug dealing and the kind of suspicious deaths or anything that surrounded the Clintons? Were you? No,
I would just read about it.
You read about it. So you never really saw any of that.
A little unnerving.
Yeah. I mean, there is a death list that people talk about of people who have unfortunately met an early demise after being associated with Clinton. So
I know, it's sort of frightening.
Yeah. So did you ever, run into any of their associates or anything like that, or like Vince Foster or Webster Hubble or anybody in that kind of group back then in the 90s?
No, I never did. The only people that I came in contact with is Clinton's attorneys during the Paula Jones deposition and during Ken Starr's deposition.
Gotcha. And that was, that was like what? That was 97, right?
No, that was in, I think it was, I don't have that. I don't really remember that date. It could have been late 97. I don't remember.
Interesting. And, is there anything that you would like to follow up on or talk about or anything that we missed?
No, except for the one time that Bill Clinton apologized to me.
Gotcha. And where was that?
That was in 91. And I was down at a nursing home meeting, and I had two of my nurse employees with me. And someone comes to the door and says, Juanita Broaddrick is wanted in the hallway. And so my nurses followed me out because we thought it might be some kind of an emergency from home. And the man, when I came out the door, pointed me down around the corner. And I went down around the corner, and the nurses sort of stayed a distance behind me, but they followed me, and they saw him, but they really couldn't hear what was going on. They just sort of stayed their distance. And he walked over to me and just started profusely apologizing, saying, I'm so sorry for what happened. And he would say things like, I'm a changed man. I have a family, and I just want you to know how sorry I am. And it just went all over me. It shocked me that he would do that out there in front of all the people that were standing around. And it just surprised me to no end. And I just looked at him and told him to go to hell, and I walked off. But I'm happy that happened, because up until that time, I had blamed myself, and he did me a favor by putting the blame where it should be. Wow, squarely on him.
Interesting. Did you ever hear the story of Bill Clinton that his born name is Blythe, correct? And have you heard the story that the father Blythe is not really his father? Have you heard that?
No, I haven't heard that.
So some investigators, one was Christopher Hitchens. He was a kind of a famous journalist. He said that.
Yeah, Chris was a friend. We talked a lot when he was writing his book, No One Left to Lie To.
That's right. Interesting. Yeah, he's unfortunately passed away, but
I know.
Some people have considered his book to be the best book about the Clintons.
Yes, and I talked with him a long time while he was writing that book.
Interesting. What kind of questions did he ask? Just kind of the same stuff that we've covered?
Same stuff that we're going through right now.
Did he reference you in his book?
Yes, uh-huh.
Oh, interesting. Well, he was one of the people, the timing of the Blythe parentage isn't right. He was in Europe 9 months before Bill Clinton was born. So it's very suspect that he could actually be Bill Clinton's father.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So
no, I did not know that.
Yeah, some people think that his mother actually just chose this guy who had died before in a car accident before Clinton was born as a ruse to cover up the real parentage. So, which nobody knows. And his mother, Virginia Kelly, was kind of a hellraiser, is my understanding. She was in bars and stuff like that. Do you ever have any contact with Bill's family or brother or anything like that?
No, I've never had any contact with him, but I've started communicating with Dolly Kyle, and she sent me her book, Hillary the Other Woman, and I've been getting into that, reading it, and that's very eye-opening.
Interesting. What's her basic gist? What's the point of her book? Just kind of talking about her cover-ups and stuff?
Yeah, all through, but because she was a friend of the family for 20-some-odd years, and all of the things that he did.
Right. And the cocaine. And have you ever read the book Partners in Power?
No, I haven't. But I've heard about the cocaine use.
Yes.
And from I can't really say who told me about it. because I told her that I wouldn't. But it's another one of his, another one of the women that said that cocaine use was very prominent.
Yeah, I think there was a woman who came out, Sally Miller, who was also on Ed Opperman Report. If you'd like to listen to that, she talks about him just blatantly doing cocaine on her bedside table. There's a video of that.
I heard that. Yeah, I heard that. But this is from a different lady.
And he, before he had his heart trouble, there was a report that has subsequently been basically taken out of the internet that said that Clinton had lesions on his heart. And those lesions on the heart are very consistent with cocaine abuse. And the stories
I can believe it.
Yeah, so the cocaine abuse may have blown out his heart. And Partners in Power goes over that really well. The author's name is Roger Morris. If you he was basically attacked for writing that book because it was too honest. And
oh my gosh,
it's really a good book. And Roger Morris was he was in Henry Kissinger. I think he worked for Henry Kissinger. He was a legitimate author. So it's very interesting. I think that the stories of the Clintons are still ongoing. I think, even today people are talking about their charity fraud and
I know.
All that stuff.
Charles Ortel is really on that.
Yeah. Ed Opperman's interviewed Charles Ortel. And even back it's kind of like an adjunct from things that happened back in Arkansas. I think it was the ASDA, or there was a kind of development fund that was in Arkansas at the time. Did you ever hear about that? And a lot of those funds were misapplied?
No, listen, after that happened to me, I just stayed away from anything. If he came on the TV, I switched it so quick. I just couldn't. I couldn't stand to see him, hear his voice, or see him on television. And I did not want anything to do with him or his past or his future or anything.
Yeah,
I even changed the church service that I went to, because the late church for the Episcopalian Church would always say his name when they said the prayers for the people of the state. And they would say his name, but we switched to the early church because then I wouldn't have to hear his name.
Do you think he's still admired in the state of Arkansas, or what's the opinion there from his home state?
Everybody around me that I know are not fans at all. In fact, they're ashamed that he came from Arkansas. But I don't know what it is in and around Little Rock and some of the larger areas. I don't know what the views are down there.
Interesting. Did they ever return to the state of Arkansas, or they basically have kind of left it? Would you say that's the case?
I think I think I've seen in the news sometimes, like when he's gone to the U of A, the University of Arkansas, for some function or event. And, but other than that, I think they rarely come back here.
Interesting. Yeah, they seem to be basically D.C. and New York types all the way.
Right.
Did they, when they were in Arkansas at the Rose Law Firm was in Little Rock, is that correct?
Yes, uh-huh.
Gotcha. And I'm just curious about what their kind of lifestyle was back there. Did they really mix with the Arkansas people, or were they still kind of considered, people from New York, outsiders, New Yorkers, especially Hillary Clinton?
Gosh, I really do not know. Like I said, I've just tried to not listen to anything regarding him. It's just too painful to know that he went from Attorney General to Governor to the President of the United States. It's
remarkable. It
is. It is.
They are really, the Clintons are experts at kind of public relations and really engaging in a lot of public deceptions. At least that's my opinion of them both, So I can see how and I think Partners in Power really lays that out by Morris about how calculating and clever they are, about how to deal with their problems.
Could be. But I'm not real involved in politics. I'm not involved in the political scene at all. The only thing I know about is what happened to me in that room. Gotcha. And other than that, it's usually what I see on the news or what I read in the newspaper or on the internet.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's really amazing that this right out in California right now, the Clintons and Bernie Sanders are, the vote is going to take place on June 7th. So
I know
things are happening very fast, and it'll be a decisive vote. If she wins, if she wins California, I think his race is over. But if he wins, that's another question. So
I know. I was watching that tonight on the news.
Yeah. Do you care to speculate? I mean, what do you think would happen if Bill and Hillary did become partners in power in the American presidency in 2016? What do you think would happen?
Oh, I can't even go there. I can't even think about that. I'm just hoping and praying that something derails their run.
Yeah. I got a bad feeling too. That's kind of my opinion.
It's a horrible feeling.
Gotcha. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about? I mean, if there's nothing else, I can just let you go. And I really appreciate you, taking the time to talk about this challenging subject and your willingness to come forward and tell a very important story.
Oh, well, listen, thank you so much for asking me. And I just hope some of the American people that are supporters of Hillary will wake up and know that this woman is not fit to be the president of the United States.
Great. Okay, Mrs. Broaddrick, thank you so much for coming on the Ed Opperman Report. We really appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you so much for calling.
Okay, take care. Please share this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.